Good day everyone. So the following are the 19 metrics of language competencies, learning outcomes, and learning activities. The assessment of assigned domain of Grade 7 K-12 Basic Education Curriculum. First quarter, content standard. The learner demonstrates understanding of pre-colonial Philippine literature as means of connecting to the past various reading styles, ways of determining word, meaning, the sounds of English, and the prosodic features of speech, and correct subject-verb agreement. Performance standard. The learner transfer learning by showing appreciation for the literature of the past, comprehending text using appropriate reading styles, participating in conversations using appropriate context-dependent expressions, producing English sounds correctly and using the prosodic features of speech effectively in various situations, and observing correct subject-verb agreement. Week 2. Competencies with Code EN7LC-1-A-5.1. Lesson 4. Important points signaled by volume, projection, pitch, stress, intonation, junctures, and rate of speech. Learning outcomes. At the end of this lesson, the students are expected to enumerate the importance of intonation. Use the correct intonation of a phrase or sentence. Learning activities. Answer this question and about your learning and how to these features make it possible for you to convey several different meanings. Assessment. Determine if it is rising intonation or falling intonation. Grade 7, second quarter. Content standard. The learner demonstrates understanding of Philippine literature during the period of apprenticeship as a means of examining complex, various purposeful listening and viewing strategies. Difference between literal and figurative language, ways to extract and condense information based on library sources, verbal and nonverbal cues, in oral communication, and types of phrases, clauses, and sentences. Performance standard. The learner transfer learning by resolving conflicts presented in literary selections, using tools and mechanisms in locating library resources, extracting information and noting details from text to write phrases, summary, or paraphrase. Distinguishing between and using literal and figurative language and verbal and nonverbal cues. Use phrases, clauses, and sentences meaningfully and appropriately. Week 2. Competencies with Code EN7LC-2-B-3.3. Recognize main key ideas. Learning outcomes. With the use of various activities, the learners will be able to determine the elements found in the story, arrange the events chronologically, identify the meaning of the difficult words in the story, explain how the elements contribute to the theme of the selection through graphic organizing. Learning activities. Divide the class into 4. Each group will be given puzzle pieces. The students are tasked to reform the puzzle into each original picture. When formed, the puzzle pieces will show a picture or poster of Biyag ni Lamang. Assessment. The students will give a strip of paper. The strip of paper contains a certain scenario in the story of the life of Lamang. They are tasked to reenact the scenario in just 1 minute range of time.
K-12 Education Curriculum, Grade 8, First Quarter. Content Standard. The learner demonstrates understanding of African literature. Performance Standard. The learner develops and delivers an informative speech on a specific topic of interest. Week 1 Competencies with Code. Listen for important points signaled by volume, projection, pitch, stress, intonation, juncture, and rate of speech. Learning outcomes. The student should be able to attain the following with at least 80% level of proficiency. A. Identify stress, intonation, and pause as elements of spoken language that serve as carriers of meaning. B. Use appropriate stress, intonation, and pausing to suit the message and audience. Learning activities. The class will be divided into 4. Each group must read the given words like as if they were angry. A. Permit. B. Transfer. C. Discount. D. Responsibility. Assessment. Process questions. 1. What traditions and values of Afro-Asians are revealed in the video clip presented? 2. How are your traditions and values similar and or different from them? 3. How important is understanding to your identity as an Asian? Second quarter, Content Standard. The learner demonstrates understanding of East Asian literary as art form inspired by nature. Performance Standards. The learner transfers learning by composing and delivering a brief and creative entertainment speech. Week 1, Competencies with Code. Employ appropriate listening skills and strategies suited to long descriptive and narrative texts. Learning outcomes. Familiarize the notable Thai costumes and traditions. Compare and contrast Thai Philippine cultures. Learning activities, true or false. 5 minutes. 1. Buddhism is the main religion in Thailand. 2. Thailand is a kingdom of constitutional monarchy. 3. It is the 50th largest country. 4. Thailand is smaller than Spain. 5. There are 2 seasons in Thailand, the wet and dry season. Assessment. The students will write the difference and similarities of our culture and traditions from that of Thailand based from the material viewed and discussed.
K-12 Basic Education Curriculum Grade 9 First Quarter. Content Standard focuses to the learners on how to demonstrate and understand the Anglo-American literature in order to improve soft skills and knowledge. Performance Standard. The learner competently perform a play of effective verbal and non-verbal strategies. So, Week 2 Competencies with Code English 9 LC-LD-62 and fair thoughts, feelings, and intentions of the speaker. So, learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, students will be able to first identify at least 2 different points of view in a story. The second one is explain how a character's point of view shapes the understanding and stance. So, learning activities. Evaluate speaker's emotion from the story entitled The Necklace. Then assessment allows students to read a story and identify the speaker's emotion. Grade 9 Second Quarter. So, Content Standard focuses on learners' demonstration and understandings of how Anglo-American literature related to a play chamber theater presentation. So, Performance Standard, the learner plays a chamber theater presentation through effective verbal and non-verbal strategies. Week 2 Competencies with Code English 9 LC-LRB-2.8 Make inferences from what was seen. So, learning outcomes. In this lesson, students will become familiar with the components of an inference, make inferences based on background knowledge and clues from the text, and learning activities. Identify the components of an inference in the story of Once Upon a Time. And the assessment is let students select and write their inferences from a certain story.
Good day everyone. So the following are the alignment metrics of language competencies, learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment of grade 10 K-12 to basic education curriculum. So in the first quarter, the content standard is demonstrate command of the conventions of standard English grammar and usage when writing or speaking. And then the performance standard is using knowledge of language and its own convention when writing, speaking, reading, or listening. So I choose week 4 with the code EN10LC-ID-4.1 single out, direct, and indirect signal used by a speaker. So the learning outcomes are, upon completion of this lesson, student will be able to correctly define the terms direct and indirect speech. And second, accurately change direct speech to indirect speech. So the learning activities is selecting the best option to make the given direct speech and indirect speech, and the assessment of this is changing the statement to direct or indirect speech. So in second quarter, the content standard is the learner must demonstrate understanding of how world literature and other types serve as vehicles of expressing and resolving conflicts among individuals or groups. Also, how to use strategies in critical reading, listening, and viewing, and affirmation and negation markers to deliver impromptu and extemporaneous speeches. Performance standard is the learner proficiently delivers an argumentative speech emphasizing how to resolve conflicts among individuals or groups. So I choose week 4 with the code EN10LC-IID-3.15. Evaluate listening text in terms of accuracy, validity, adequacy, and relevance. So the learning outcomes are: upon completion of this lesson, student will be able to first give each technical and operational definition. The second one is evaluate text in terms of accuracy, validity, adequacy, and relevance by listening. The learning activities: let the student listen to a report about a male or a female inequalities in the country. And the assessment: defining the term by completing the sentence. So that would be all. Thank you.